Okay, so in this video, we're going to assemble the Widow's Web Wreath, and we're going to begin by putting together the actual web. Okay, so we have these 4 pieces here, and if you look closely, you will see some score lines here and here. Okay, the first set of score lines closest to the edge are to help you with overlapping these pieces. The second set of score marks is to help you with the alignment of the actual spider web itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our glue, and we're going to begin by putting glue inside of this first area here within the score mark area. Okay, and we're going to take another piece here and just get that perfectly aligned to that score mark. Okay, and you can kind of run your finger along the edge there just to make sure that you've got it lined up correctly. Okay, so we can go ahead and rotate that and place glue on the next section here. Just make sure you don't go beyond the score mark area. Okay, take this next piece and just make sure that the score marks are on the opposite side when you're putting this down, so that you're not putting score marks up to score marks. Okay, had a little bit of glue outside that main area, but that's fine. And it's nice and smooth up here, so I know I have it aligned properly. And I'm just going to repeat that one more time. Okay. Get that nice and aligned. Here we go. Perfect. Okay, and then this final one here should be pretty much dead on, and it is. So we're going to go ahead and just put glue inside of the score mark area. And just close that up. Okay, so now that we have that in place, we can go ahead and take our spider web, and all we're going to do is just use the score marks as our guides to get the spider webs nice and aligned. Okay. And we want to just kind of have them just to the inside of those score marks and get all these glued down in place. Okay, so you can use your existing piece as a guide to place that next piece. So when you're gluing down the actual spider web portion, I'm just putting glue on the outermost edge right now just to speed up the video, but you will want to put glue on all of these areas here just to make sure that it stays. And really the most important thing to do after you get the first one down is just get the second one aligned so that it looks continuous, and then focus your attention to the inner ring here and just make sure that that is nice and lined up there as well. Okay, and you might need to kind of scooch things around a little bit just to make sure that you've got it nice and flush. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And again, just continue that process until you have all of the web pieces glued into place. So there is the web. Now let's go ahead and begin assembling the various structures. We'll start with probably the easier ones, just to kind of get an idea of what we're doing before we get to the big one here. Okay, so we have these pieces here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to join this piece to its identical twin by putting glue on the triangular part here. Now this is a tab, so you may want to just bend it so that you can see exactly where to connect it. Okay, so I'm just kind of putting it in place initially, and then what I like to do to ensure that I have it perfectly symmetrical is I like to fold it in half and just kind of run my fingers along the outer edge of this piece, because it should be flush and perfect. That's how you know that you have it aligned perfectly. And then I can just fold this tab in, this little triangular tab here, fold that in, put some glue on there, and just close this little loop. Okay, I'm just going to push that down and get that closed. I'll lift this up so I can apply pressure to both sides here, or you can use your table. It's completely up to you. Totally fine either way. Give that just a few seconds to dry. Okay, and then we're going to create this little piece here. Now, when you cut these strips out, if you're ever unsure what goes where, you can always take and look at the score mark here and line it up flush with the edge of one of these. I think they're 8-sided. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, these octagons, and the length of one of the sides should be perfectly the length of this part here. Okay, so that's how you know that you've got the right size. And I'm going to go ahead and bend all these at the score marks just to kind of get them trained, and then I'm going to fold in just one side for now, like so. Okay, place that flat on my table, and I'm going to grab just one of these. It doesn't matter which one because they're both the same. Okay, and just make sure that the holes kind of line up. Okay, because we need all these holes to line up perfectly when we go to close this thing and assemble all the structures. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put glue on all of these tabs. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Got to work kind of quick. This doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be enough glue to hold everything. And I'm going to just pop this inside, like so, and just kind of work my way around, pushing that glue down to make sure that it gets a nice hold. Okay, and that's pretty good. This side here is going to get glued down to the next piece, the next layer or level of the structure, so it doesn't need a bottom. We wanted to kind of save on paper, so we use this little liner piece as the bottom. But again, it's not going to be visible, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so we're going to pull these tabs down. Now here's that important part that I told you about. When we put this piece on, just make sure that you can see through and you're not obstructing that hole. You don't want it off. Okay, we need to be able to see through all the way. Okay, so what I'm going to do to make the assembly of this foolproof is I am going to put glue on just one of these tabs. Again, making sure that I've got my hole aligned properly, and I am going to glue this in place, just making sure that I've got it nice and centered on that tab and that it aligns perfectly with that edge. Okay, so give that a few seconds to grip, and then you can place it flat down on your table and push down to get a better grip. And now that we have that first piece in place, I think the best thing to do at this point would be to just put glue on all these tabs. Start with a generous amount on the inner part of the tabs. And then what I like to do is get a nice thin line right along the edge. You got to kind of work quick here so that your glue doesn't dry. And that's just going to help us with nice looking seams. Okay, almost there. Gotta kind of work a little bit quicker here because this glue is going to dry. I'm going to lift these tabs up a tad so that when I push down, it grabs more surface area. And then you can just kind of run your finger along this whole thing. You might have to shimmy a little, nudge a piece here or there just to make sure that you get it perfectly aligned. Okay, and most of this is going to be concealed. So again, just make sure that you can see through that hole. Okay, so pretty simple to build this structure. And really what we're going to do is repeat this process a few more times. Okay, so here is a bigger layer. And just like we did with the last one, I'm going to get all my texture side up here. And I'm going to lay these next to each other. I'm going to fold at the little score mark there. And I'm going to just begin piecing this together. Let it get its initial grip and then fold it in half just to kind of shimmy it into place just to make sure that this is nice and symmetrical. That way you know that you've got it perfectly lined up. Okay, I'm going to grab the next piece, bend this tab over, this tab here, place glue on it, and just make sure that your texture side, if you're using American Crafts, is all pointing in the same direction. Fold that in half just to make sure that I get this thing nice and aligned. Beautiful. And finally, last one, and then we're going to go ahead and and then we're going to go ahead and close up this loop of this wall structure, as I like to call it. Okay, I know I kind of shimmied out of place a little bit, but just pick it up in my hands and kind of scooch it around until, there we go. Okay, so we can go ahead and close this up now. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on this triangular tab here, as you can see. I'm going to lay that flat and then just take this other piece and glue it down. And if that looked confusing, it's just, we're just closing the loop. And I'm going to fold it in half just like I did with the rest of them, just to make sure that it's nice and flush here and there. And there we go. I'm going to work my way around here, folding at the score marks to begin forming this hexagon. And as we did last time, just going to fold the tabs on one side over. Okay, so we've got our basic structure. Again, it's important that you make sure that these holes are nice and lined up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the big guy here. I think for a certain type of work, a certain gauge nozzle works better. You just get more coverage with less effort, speeds up the process. That fine tip applicator is good for certain things, but not the best for when you need a lot of glue. So again, just make sure that you know you've got these pieces in place. This has an L on it. That's our liner. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop this in there and just work my finger all the way around, making sure that it gets a good grip. Okay, and that's what that looks like. If you want, if you did miss a few little areas here, you can just grab a little bit of glue and clean it up. Again, this part, that part no one's really gonna see because it's going to go on top of the layer that's underneath, okay? So what we can go ahead and do is fold these over. Okay, and again, before you even think about putting this piece on, just make sure that the holes line up. Okay, you can see there, I can see right through there. Okay, and just as I did before, I'm gonna go ahead and put some glue on this tab. I'm gonna use my fine tip to get a little bit towards the edge to get a nice fine seam. Okay, and again, just making sure that my hole is aligned, and it is. I'm gonna get this piece glued into place. Just make sure that you've got it nice and centered on that edge. Okay, once it gets its initial grip, you can kind of lay it down on your table and push down. Okay, so that is nice and perfect. Okay, and then we can go ahead and put glue on the remaining tabs here to close this guy up. And this glue bottle is a little clogged. That's okay. It's still doing the job here, or at least it was. I'm going to switch back to this guy. And you know, depending on your applicator and depending on how much you squeeze out, these things are pretty good because you can really control the flow. And I'm kind of going a little quick here. But you do gotta go quick here because they don't call it quick dry for nothing. It's pretty quick to dry, so, okay. And we can go ahead and close this shape up. And probably have to scooch some things around. Again, you know what? These structural pieces, they're not really gonna be seen for the most part, but you still wanna do your best. Make sure everything's nice and aligned and perfect. They're all gonna be hidden. They're completely structural and won't really be visible, but you still wanna do a good job. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna build the little box structure where our little tea light is gonna be stashed, basically. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take and glue these two sections together. Okay. And this is gonna be hidden. So it doesn't really matter how this goes together, just do your best. If you get a little messy, that's okay. And then we can go ahead and close this up. Okay, we'll put glue on this piece here. And just glue that to the edge like so. And this should lie flat when it's all glued together. That's how you know that you've got it perfectly aligned. Just go ahead and hold that in place until it's nice and dry. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of these pieces here. Okay, you've got this is the main piece that's gonna be on the back. So we can put that off to the side for a second. I'm gonna grab the piece that has the letter L on it, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold these tabs over, okay? And we're going to basically stick this through like so. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to take and glue these tabs down. Just going to do one real quick just to make sure that it gets a good grip. Okay, and then I can go ahead and put glue on the rest of the pieces here. Okay, you just fold those down and just use your table for leverage to get that all into place. Okay. All right, so that looks good. And the next thing we're going to do is, and this is our liner piece, so remember that, we are going to close this up. Okay. And at this point, what we need to do is we need to make sure that when we put this in, your hole is going to be on the top left, okay? And what we want to do is make sure that once this structure is all together, okay, because this is going to be the bottom, okay? This is going to be the back like this. So you see that hole there. We just need to make sure that everything is going to align perfectly. Okay. Now, when you place this piece on top of this piece, you want to make sure that the edge is even all the way around. Okay. And then, so if we place this on here, should be able to look through it with that liner piece, which we've not glued down yet. And I'm going to go ahead and actually, I'm going to get this piece glued down just so that it's ready. Okay, and you can put a nice hefty amount of glue on this. Just make sure that it really, really holds. Okay, and again, just make sure that your hole is nice and aligned, but that also you've got a nice even border going all the way around this thing. If you have like a dowel or something that you want to stick through here, just to make sure that that hole is nice and aligned, you can do that. That's fine. And this is the top layer, this is the middle layer, and this will be the back layer. Okay, so before you place this panel and get that glued down, I would advise just kind of shoving it into place and just making sure that you get that hole aligned while making sure that there's a nice even border all the way around it. And I have that right. Okay, so that looks right. So I can go ahead and I can get this glued into place. Okay, so it goes in like that. Just remember that. I'm gonna go ahead and put glue on these tabs here. And just pop that piece in. Just like that. Just work your way around. Okay. And then you've got another piece here that you can put on the back just to clean it up. And actually it's more for reinforcement since you're really not going to see this piece at all. This is going to be inside this box that we are going to complete here in just a second. So it's more for just reinforcement, just to make this piece stronger. Okay, so I've got the holes nice and aligned there. And this hole is just to help the fairy lights make it all the way out to the front. Okay, and this is the back piece here. So now that we have this back piece, okay, what we can do is we can put this on just to kind of clean it up and close it off. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. There's going to be one more layer that's going to go on top of this anyway. So And again, that's just to really make this thing super sturdy. So I'm going to put that on my table and just push that around. Okay. So there's that. And at this point, what we can go ahead and do is assemble. And actually, there are two more little strips here. And that's just to clean up the inside here where the tabs are. You can just glue that in place there, just to clean up the tabs. We want it to be nice and pretty all the way around. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take these pieces here and join them together to form the perimeter of the largest area. Okay, so I'm just gonna get them all going in this direction here. I'm gonna put glue on that tab there. And we'll begin joining these pieces together to form our structure. So we are just going to repeat that process until we have all the pieces in place, and then we're going to go ahead and connect and complete the loop. Okay. Get that initial grip, then you can fold it over, pick it up, and just kind of scooch it around and make sure that you've got it nice and aligned. Okay, next piece. Oh, and by the way, when you cut this out, the little side pieces for the box, these sections here are all the same length, okay? And the ones for the box, one side of it is a little bit longer. So you'll obviously this wouldn't work because it's too short. So just make sure that when you're creating the box that you get the two pieces that have one longer side and one shorter side. Okay. So let's get that in place. Just work our way down. Get that nice and glued. And I think that's it. We're going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8. I'm going to go ahead and fold this over and we'll get this closed up. Okay. And there we go. There we go. Okay. So at this point, what we can go ahead and do is fold tabs over on one side. Okay, and just kind of begin forming our little octagon there. Okay. And I'm just gonna glue this into place here, like so. Okay, and then finally, we have this piece here. And before we do anything, let's just make sure that we can get a visual to make sure that all of our holes are going to align properly. Okay, so that's how that's going to go on once I have it in place, and then I should be able to see all the way through there, and I can. Okay, so that's perfect. All right, let me bring this back up. I'm going to go ahead and put glue on this whole thing here, and all these tabs on the inside. And it does kind of help to get glue out to the edge too, so that it's nice and closed up and nice and seamless. Okay, so let's just pop that right in. like so. Just use our finger to push down and get all that in there. Okay, so that looks good. And then we can go ahead and close this off. And again, just make sure that your hole aligns perfectly, like that. Go ahead and put glue on these tabs. Again, this is the top here, so no one's really going to see this, but do your best to get enough glue on there so everything sticks, and also enough glue out to the edge so we get nice seamless areas. And just do a little line along the edge. And you get the point there. Okay, so again, most important thing, just make sure that you get that hole aligned. Just push down, work your way around, make sure that it's got a nice grip all the way around, and hold that into place. Okay, now one thing that I forgot to mention, so I'm going to lift this up, is you can actually put glue on this box too. Okay, so I may need to reapply my glue now because I lifted it up while it was starting to dry. Maybe not though. Okay, so that's what that box should look like. Now on the back here, we have one more piece. It's going to go like this. Okay, and it has a little flap on here so that you can access the little compartments for your tea lights, or not your tea light, but your fairy lights. Okay, so I'm going to do the edge first. And get that out there. And then just cover this whole thing with a good amount of glue. And get that glued down. There we go. Okay. It's a cool little contraption. Got a little too much glue on there, so just be careful. Okay. So there we go, there's that. And now there's one other piece here. And this is the little, it's like a little box for the tea light. Or I'm sorry, I keep saying tea light. What I mean is fairy light. Okay, and this simply goes together like that. Okay, so what we can do is we can go ahead and put glue on this tab here and just get that glued into place. Make sure you got it nice and aligned, like so. And same with this side here. Get it out to the edge. And hold that until it's dry. Okay, I'm gonna move this out of the way and bring these tabs in. And put glue. These tabs here. And just fold that over. Hold that in place until it dries. Same with this side. Okay. So I will show you how this works, but your little fairy lights are going to go in there, and then you can kind of pop that box in. Okay, and I put a little pop dot or some tape on here to really keep that thing shut, and that's just going to prevent this thing from falling out when you take it off of your wall. Okay, So it's a cool little thing we devised there. Okay, now at this point, all that's left to do is make sure that, and actually let me take this out so that we can see light beaming through. Let me open up the flap, okay, and that's perfect. You can see the light passing through there, okay, so we can get this whole thing glued down, okay, and again, just do a visual check, making sure that you've got everything aligned. So I've got the letter L here, it's right side up, and I'm gonna go ahead and just slather this thing with glue, just to make sure that it gets a nice grip. Okay, and work some out to the edge. Just want to make sure this never, ever, ever comes off. Okay. And I'm just going to stand up here, make sure that that hole is nice and aligned. Okay. So that is how that works. Okay. And then what you're going to do ultimately, and actually, let me just kind of jump around here for a second. The back of the wreath, there's a little hanger, okay? And what you want to do is you just want to glue these pieces together completely. So put glue on this whole thing. Okay, pop this piece on there. And then I would fold it just so that it folds easier when you're done. There's one more piece to this. Here it is. And we're going to glue that on just to the top here, and that's to reinforce that piece. I've had this thing hanging for about 2 days now, and it's doing great. Can definitely hold up the weight, and we used a bunch of metallics and even some glitter, and it seems to be hanging just fine. Okay, so the only reason I'm doing this now is because it's a little bit easier to do this now before you put your spider and your rosette on there, because you can risk kind of damaging that. Okay, so here is, this really doesn't matter how this goes on because it's all the same all the way around. There is a little score mark going all the way around this to help you with the alignment when we actually go to glue this on. Okay, but what I want you to do is figure out where you're going to put this guy. Okay, and you want to bring him all the way up to the top as far as you can without it poking out. So that to me looks like where I kind of want mine. I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to put glue on the underside of this, and glue worked just fine in our sample. You can hot glue it if you're not sure, but glue worked just fine. And actually I did a stress test on it with just standard glue. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting really messy here. I did a stress test on it, and the glue didn't give. The paper actually ripped before the glue would give. I'd give it a good 20 minutes just to make sure that it's nice and dry. Okay, but that's where that's going to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over, okay, and use that circle on the back to help us with the alignment. And of course, just make sure that this is, you know, straight above this, and that you've got it nice and aligned perfectly there. So what you can go ahead and do is put glue, and you can hot glue this if you don't trust your glue. It might be a good idea. Okay, just get a bunch of glue on the back there, just around that circle. And give it a good glob around the edge too. And get that nice and centered on that circle that we so nicely put there for you. Let it get its initial grip. Okay, and then you can kind of flip it over and push down. Now at this point, what we're going to do is string our lights through. Okay, so we're going to flip this over, It's probably still drying, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead and just move on here. So I've got these fairy lights. We have a link to the exact ones that we used on the website. I got them from Amazon Prime, or Amazon with my Prime account, and I don't remember how much they are, but they're not too bad. And what we're gonna do is just find the end of our lights here and start shoving it through those strategically placed holes that we were ever so concerned about throughout this whole process. We just need to get it through. There it goes, came right out. We're just gonna pull those through. Okay. Just feed it through all the way out. And yours is gonna be a lot neater than mine, just like our sample, because you're gonna take your time. I would say that this is probably a good, I don't know, you probably want to give yourself at least an hour to put this together nicely. I try to condense these videos to about 30 minutes, so that's why things kind of get a little messy sometimes, but as long as you know how to put it together, that's all that matters, and you could spend a whole day on this for all I care, because it's just going to look so much better when it's nice and clean and perfect. So just work those lights out. And of course, make sure your lights work before you do all this. Okay, because the last thing you want to do is go through all this only to find out that, well, the lights that you strung through don't work. That would be sad. Okay, so you don't need to go further than that because that's not really going to do much for you. And then again, so let me turn these on. This is the little container for this, okay? Just kind of sits like that. And then you can kind of wrap that wire in there, shove this thing in, close it off, put a little tape on there, okay? Okay, so now that we have our lights all the way through, what I suggest you do is take the little petals here, and the top layer is going to be, you're going to use the petals with the circles. The middle layer has the diamonds, and then the bottom layer has this design. So that's how you know what goes where. And we do have score lines on these, but they're not for bending. They're just used as a guide to help you with placement, so you know where to glue these, okay? And these are going to get glued to each of the little sides here, but we're not gluing them on just yet. I just want you to kind of get a visual as far as where you can place the lights on the top here. Okay, so we can go ahead and grab our Scotch tape, and I just want to put just a few lights up at the top here just to kind of illuminate the rosette portion once this thing's lit up. And again, just keep the tape away from the edge there, just to make sure that we're not obstructing the gluing of, you know, the actual petals. Okay, so maybe just throw a couple up at the top. Try to space them out as evenly as possible. And again, we're going to be pop dotting the rosette in place, so we don't have to worry about these wires preventing any sort of glue from sticking. Okay, so I've got a few on there. You can add more or less. It's up to you. And what we're going to do then is take this strand and work our way down to the next layer. And I'm going to glue, I'm going to take and just kind of, not glue, but tape this wire here along the edge. Okay, and you might want to wrap this around a couple times just to make sure that you get enough illumination on each little layer. Okay, and if you do this kind of tightly. You probably don't have to tape any of this actually. If you want to reuse this, if you think this is going to be a temporary thing, or if you don't want to spend the time, you can kind of wrap it around and then place tape just in little strategic spots to kind of get it to hold. I don't think it's necessary to tape every single little section. Okay, so I've got like 2 layers there. Okay, and again, you don't want to obstruct this area here because that's where we're going to be gluing our petals. So I've got that pretty taut. I'm going to go ahead and grab some Scotch tape and just tape some of these specific sections into place. Just use little strips. Okay, just to kind of get it to hold. Again, once this has glue or tape in a few spots, it will hold as long as it's taut. It should be good. And again, this is all going to be hidden by our petals. Okay, we were thinking about putting the lights inside this box, but that would be a construction nightmare. So we decided against that. And you know what, even if you do get a little bit of glue where the petals sit, it's not, or not glue, I keep saying glue, I mean tape. It's not the end of the world because we've tested it and our glue sticks to tape too, so it's not the end of the world. All right, so I've got a few of them taped down, and that's fine. So I can go ahead and, oh, this came undone. Let me grab another piece here. And just get that taped into place. Okay, and then we're going to work our way down, and I'm going to tape this next section right here. And as you can see, part of my structure is coming undone because I wasn't patient with my glue. So just make sure that you take your time gluing everything. So I've got one little section taped down here, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this strand around. Okay, and take a look and see how much light you have left. Okay, and decide if you can go twice around this. This one actually, this strand of lights, I had to actually cut because the wire kind of broke on me. So mine's going to be a little bit shorter than the 16 feet that yours probably is. So I'm going to end that there. Okay, and I'm going to work this strand down here. I'm going to get that taped to the edge there. And again, this is all going to be hidden by the petals, so it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, I'm going to just put another piece of tape here just to reinforce this, make sure it doesn't start moving around on me. I'm just going to wrap this around. And it looks like I may be able to get it around twice. Yeah, there we go. And then I can kind of just tuck that in, sort of tie it to itself, just to kind of hold in place like that. And see, you see what I mean by maybe not even having to use too much tape? That's really going to stay on there. This is metal, it's pretty malleable, and it will stick. So really all that's left to do at this point is begin placing your petals. Okay, and I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up. Okay, so again, these score lines here are just for alignment, and you're going to get that, you're going to glue them down just like that. Okay, and now actually what we did was we took and trained these to flare out, not back, but out, so that they're curved out like that. Okay, and you can just put glue within the tabbed area and just glue that in place. Just like that. Okay. And you're going to work your way all the way around. And I'm just kind of shoving these under the lights here just so that they stick. Okay, all the way around. So you get the idea there. And then you go to the next layer. Now this next layer, you kind of, you work the corners, okay? And again, I would advise training these pieces so that they curl up and get those glued into place. And you may occasionally have to move a wire out of the way, and that's fine, okay? So you see how that works. So you're going to get all those glued on there. And again, we do have score marks on these to help you place the glue, okay? And you're going to get that glued into place, just like so, all the way around. And then finally, you have the orange layer, and you're going to get that glued into place, okay? Train these out too, so they flare out. Okay, get these all glued into place. And then all that's left to do is create your rosette and slap that right on the front. Okay, so the rosette is made up of these 3 pieces here, and we're just gonna kind of zigzag fold these. Okay, just folding a rosette. And you may want to hot glue this. Rosettes tend to have a lot of tension because so many pieces are folded and just kind of fighting itself. You should be able to get away with just using glue, especially if you're not using like a glitter or something for this. If you're just using cardstock, it should be fine. So you're just folding the rosette to begin creating it. And I've got my texture side up here because I want everyone to see that beautiful texture. Okay, so you get the idea. Go ahead and fold all your rosettes. We're going to combine all 3 of these to create our rosette. And then we're going to slap our spider on there and just pop dot that to the top. And I'll show you the final version here close up so you can see it and how we did everything. And again, with the final version, probably took about twice as long to do that because I was taking my time and everything came out nice and pretty. With this one, I kind of rushed through it because I don't want you guys to get bored watching the glue dry. So when you're creating the rosettes, you don't have to do it this way, but you can. It helps if one of them begins and ends with a valley fold, and you can see, just remember the letter V, it creates a V, it's a valley fold, and the other one starts with a mountain fold and ends with a mountain fold. Okay, and that just makes it a lot easier to piece this thing together. So what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on one of these and just slap this one here, just butt it up against that score line there. And just make sure that this kind of folds seamlessly. Okay, so we've got a nice continuation there. And one of these, here we have another mountain fold into a valley fold. So I'm going to get that glued into place. I did not give it enough time. Need to be patient. Okay. There we go. I'm just going to bunch this up. Okay. We do need to connect the 2 sides together. So get that all bunched up. And you see what I mean by resistance. Get it all bunched up. Okay, just kind of squeeze it. All right, and then we can go ahead and clear it out. Now with this piece here, it's going to be a mountain fold that we're going to have to kind of overlap like that. Okay. And then what you can do, since we're going to be pop dotting stuff, I'm just going to take a pop dot, pop it right in the middle there. And that's going to kind of hold our rosette together. And your little spider here, okay, he's got this layer here, these two layers, you glue those together, and then you put that on his body. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and put some pop dots all over our spider friend, and take him and just center him right on the rosette. Okay, so there's your rosette with the spider, and then we can take that and pop dot that right to the top there. So we get a bunch of pop dots, and actually it probably would be easier if you just pop the pop dots on the back of this guy here. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that you find your top. Okay, so this is my top right here. When you put your spider down, you get them nice and centered. Okay, and there you go. Now mine looks a little messy, obviously, because I don't have my petals on there. But let me show you our final version here. So there you go. This is what our final version looks like. And you know, yours again is going to have all the petals on there. When you put that spider on, it's just going to complete the look. And again, don't worry so much about the positioning on the lights. Just as long as they're nice and taut against the you know, the structure itself, everything's going to be a-okay. Because if you take a look, you look at this, you know, head on, it looks great. If you take a look at the side, you know, you can see that we did our best to get them positioned. But again, all the petals and everything covers up all that, and it still looks great. And people are going to be wowed when you tell them that you made it yourself.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.